Good morning, everybody. I have to start off by saying that I'm a member of the octopus that Melanie was referring to, that whole structure, and it's awesome. It's something you really should take advantage of and get into because they're doing some great work there. So yeah, well, thanks for helping me. I'll probably start off with explaining where all of this comes from. So I've been marketing, content marketing, PR. Strategy and that sort of thing for a long time now. And about a couple of years ago, I'd become a little bit kind of disillusioned with the whole marketing sector and the whole concept of marketing because um, my business had evolved where we started this agency and we had staff and that sort of thing. And we'd be doing some good campaigns for people, and they would pull the plug in about 2 or 3 months later or 4 months later. They might be seeing some results and they'd pull the plug and we'd be saying, oh, it's too soon, it's this is too soon. And it was I was becoming a little bit disillusioned by the whole thing because I just thought, why are people pulling out, and why are you know why is marketing not working? Because marketing certainly seemed to be broken, particularly when it came to SMEs. And then I had an offer from one of my clients to go.
You're on mute, Colin.
Sorry, Colin. I muted you by accident. How rude of me. If you just, I'll ask you to unmute. I heard someone cough and I was just like, oh, mute. Sorry. back to you.
And that brings it all to conclusion. Is there any questions?
Yeah, that was a wonderful 4 minutes. All right.
Just illustrated how everybody keeps pulling out.
Yeah. Apologies, Colin, continue.
Oh, good. So basically, I'd kind of come to this point where I thought marketing was broken and it wasn't working, and I was a little bit over it, to be honest. And a client came along and offered me a role in her business as the general manager because she wanted to retire at the end of the sort of a few years down the line, and she needed somebody to take over the business. And I had a large staff to look after, and so I went right into that. But doing that sort of brought a lot of home truths to me because suddenly I wasn't in marketing. I was actually running a business that was totally unrelated to marketing and all of the worries and the fusses and the troubles that actually go into business, in this case property, where marketing is just one component of that. And basically COVID came along and she's had to make a lot of people redundant, and went through a lot of learnings myself. But you don't go through a business where you've had to make a lot of people, good 20, 25 people redundant, and know that the trigger isn't waiting for you at the end, because the business had staff. It had gone from a very big business to a very small business overnight, and we had to pivot. So once all of that was done, I came back to what I know, but I came back with some kind of home truths and some learnings. And there were two things that I sort of took away from that. Is that firstly, marketers are charging too much money. It's just and people are paying them too much money for what they're getting. And the reason clients would pull the plug after a few months, or things would sort of peter out, was because clients, in paying these enormous amounts of money, were expecting shortcuts. And marketing is anything but a shortcut. So I'm just going to pull up a PowerPoint, if I may, that I'll take you through. Is that I can do that? Desktop.
Yeah, you can just share your screen down the bottom.
Sorry, I should have got that earlier, but it'll be quite helpful. Okay, it's not letting me do that, but it's okay. I'm just gonna carry on rather than boring everybody with.
In the bottom of your toolbar, there should be a share screen option.
Yeah, it says that. Oh, there we go. It kind of caught up with me. There we go.
Perfect.
Can everybody see that? I'm just gonna make
Yes.
Slideshow. There we go. And the realization is that basically marketers are charging too much money for what is essentially a long tail game. Marketing is not a shortcut. And often a lot of clients will come to marketing because they need results now. You know, that maybe they've grown and developed organically and they're looking to take it to the next level, but they come at the point where they're ready to take it to the next level, and then they have these high expectations. And I think those high expectations are perfectly legitimate because of the kind of money that they're being charged to do this work. And that sort of changed the whole philosophy of, you know, how I approach my clients and how I do that work. So, you know, if in terms of the way I do it now, I sort of work with whatever the client thinks is reasonable, because marketing is a long-term game, and I need to make sure that clients and businesses are doing marketing long term, that they have the long, you know, the sort of long game in mind, rather than you know, looking for shortcuts and overnight results, which you're not going to get with marketing, unless you're in the business where you have hundreds of thousands of dollars, you're a corporate, you already have great profile and great presence, and you can pour thousands of dollars into bargains and, you know, that sort of things. And I don't know how many times I'd heard companies say to me, "Oh, but this was a great deal and we got nothing from it." You know, how often have you done some marketing and you've got nothing from it? Because there's this whole campaign mindset and this whole, you know, results, you know, now type of thinking that marketing has actually encouraged and certainly charges too much for. So I wanted to talk through with you this morning about some of, you know, my thoughts around how you can market for less, market more effectively, but understand that you're in it for the long haul. Marketing's not a shortcut. So the first one is that, you know, set yourself a budget that you can afford. It might just be $100 a month and you're going to do it all yourself, but that's fine. And there's some things you need to do that eventually will give you the results if you do those things. And if you're just, you know, spending $100 a month, or if it's, you know, $500 a month or whatever it is, you don't have to spend a fortune, because it has to be a strategy of your business that's going to go long term. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen overnight. So, you know, even if you pour a whole lot of money into it, you just don't have the presence that you need as a company and as a, you know, as a business for the market. So, number one is that, you know, you need to set your budgets, and set your budgets low, thinking, you know, can I pay this amount of money? Can I afford this amount of money every single month for the next 12 months without missing a beat? And, you know, and it's not going to break my bank. I'm not going to have to get a ton of sales to justify that spending. And that's where, you know, marketers will come in and promise you the world. They will charge you a fortune. And after 3 or 4 months, you part ways, you're broke, you got no results, and they're looking for the next client and the next startup. And that's, you know, that's kind of a model, unfortunately, that dominates a lot of marketing agencies. You know, short bursts, lots of money, short bursts, lots of money. And here I'm primarily talking about the small to medium enterprise market, not, you know, not your corporates, it's, and your retail and all of those. Some of those are, you know, different disciplines and different things apply. So number two, once you've set your budget and you know how much you're going to be spending, is you need to test and measure. Okay, nobody's got the answers for you. And this is another thing that marketing's done wrong. They come in and they go, I've got this great concept, it's going to sell you tons, it's going to do all of these sorts of things. The reality is they don't know. They don't know, unless they've tested and measured along the way. So the advantage of going in with a lower budget means that you can afford to experiment a little bit and understand what works and what doesn't. So, for example, just recently, I did a short post with no graphics or anything about my daughter. She was having some bullying at school and all of that sort of thing, and it was about the power of stories. And that post, I think, had about 3,500 views and quite a lot of interactions. There were no graphics or anything. It was just this block of text. But from that, and I based that on something I know from testing and measuring for myself in previous years, is that personal stories have a lot of impact. So, sort of sharing some aspect that shows that you're just like anybody, that you're just like anybody else, that, we can take these learnings from our personal stories and all that. People like personal stories. They engage with personal stories. Another thing that I've learned, and you'll sort of see it from the slide where I say test and measure. And the reason I use this particular slide is that faces work really well. Testing and measuring has told me that if I use faces in my marketing, I get more engagement. And the science bears that out as well. They know that if people look at a photograph, the first thing they always look at is the face. So we know that, and you need to figure out what is it that works for you. What is it that people respond to when you put out some marketing, whether, it's social media, LinkedIn, or, Facebook, or, your website, your blog, any of those sorts of things. What is it that gets you a response, and what is it that doesn't get you a response? The third thing is visibility. So we've talked about, setting a budget you can maintain consistently, and testing and measuring your results, that you know what works. The other one is visibility, and this is where a lot of the disconnect comes with marketing, because you don't get business until you are consistently visible. So we know, networking groups like TNG, they won't work for you unless you turn up regularly. And networking groups know that. They know that visibility is the key to referrals. That old saying that absence makes the heart grow fonder, that's a load of nonsense. It just isn't true. Visibility, presence is what will earn you trust, what will earn you liking, what will earn you recognition. And that's the other problem. If some people are spending a massive amount of money over a short burst of time, people haven't had enough time to get used to them. That, they haven't had enough time to form a relationship with you. And yes, people even just form relationships with your face, or with your writings, or that sort of thing. We know that people mourn people they've never even met, who, might be high profile public figures. So maintaining visibility, to me, often is the 101 of marketing, because I believe the more visibility you have, the more business you will do. And that's why it's important to have a budget that can, you can apply consistently over a long period of time in maintaining your visibility. The next step is basically, you need to be consistent. You need to be, and I've used a picture of a nun, because she's wearing a habit, and marketing does need to become that habit. It does need to be something that you practice, every morning, or that you've got somebody practicing for you every morning, or at least once a week. But there needs to be that consistent frequency. And I mistakenly sort of referred to it as low frequency marketing in the promotional blurb. But what I meant was, you can do this at low cost, but you need to do it frequently. So I got myself a bit muddled there. Apologies for that in the promotional, but something that you can keep it low budget, but you must maintain visibility, and to do that you must be frequent, you must be present over whatever channels and forums it is you've chosen. If you're doing a newsletter, and you only want to do it once a month or every 2 weeks, that's fine, but you need to do it every single time and not drop it, not stop it, not because you lose all of the work you've done, you lose all of the money that you spend the moment you become inconsistent about your spending. And the fact is, consistency and visibility earn trust, because you show up all of the time and you're showing that you're there. The step number 5 is that you need to add value because it shows you care. A lot of people will know that sort of old saying that people don't care until they know how much you care. And again, if you're a small business and you are using a fairly low budget and you're being consistent, you're being frequent, you're being visible, you're actually probably looking there and thinking, well, what am I going to say? What am I going to do? And very often the easiest thing to do is to educate, to offer tips, to offer advice. The media, and as you heard, I come out of a media background, out of a journalism and PR background, and obviously still quite involved in PR on some of those aspects. But the media has a mission, and the media has been doing this for a few hundred years now. And they have a fairly steady audience, if not fairly steady advertising revenue, but they know what it is that people respond to. And the mission of the BBC, for example, is to educate, to inform, to entertain. And I'll often add inspire to that as well. So by adding value, if you can find ways to either entertain, educate, inspire, or inform your audience, and you approach from that framework, you're never really going to run out of things to talk about in your marketing and in your presence. So look to add value rather than to have a conversation about yourself. Have a conversation about your client. And very often that comes from understanding what their problems are. I see this all the time, even with companies that are quite successful, sort of quite substantial. They will insist on having conversations about themselves, about their customer service, about their history. If you open a website and it says we've been around since 1967, that's fine, but that's not the first thing your customer wants to know about you. Your customer's coming to your website or is engaging with you because they've got a problem. And the only reason you're in business is because you solve problems. And they're coming to you because they have a problem. So right up front, you want to address their problem if you want their engagement. And you can do that quite well through education and information in particular. And sometimes you can make that education and that information inspiring. So if you want to be consistent and you want to be visible, make the conversation about your customer and keep on doing that consistently. Step number 6, and sort of showing the little girl and her dad here, because you need to be credible as well. And again, it doesn't cost a lot of money. It's your foundational marketing. Design is credibility. If you've had a logo done, and this is where I do suggest you do spend a little bit of budget, is on your website, on your branding, on your logo, because that says to people, this company is credible, or this company is operating on a shoestring and not successful, and maybe I don't want to be associated with them. So you need to make sure that your foundations are credible. Your logo, your branding, your website, your social media presence, all of those sorts of things, testimonials, your messaging, the foundation stuff that doesn't change needs to be top notch. And that is where, you want to be putting a little bit of your budget, because that's where the sell happens. if you want people to trust you, you know, you need to be credible. The other sort of aspect is quite important as well, as having a compelling story around your business. And this is sometimes the most difficult thing, or the most challenging people. You know, they might sort of say, well, I'm a mortgage broker. How on earth do I have a story around, you know, around my business? Or, you know, they might sort of say, well, you know, I sell health products that are important. How do I have a story around that business? When we're talking about a compelling story, we're talking about a kind of narrative that people will begin to associate with you, no matter what it is. And I've shown a picture here of what's called a balance bike, because it reminds me of a number of years ago now, when these bikes first came on the scene. I did some work with a company, and their story, what she said to me was, children learn to balance before they learn to pedal. But we've got it completely the wrong way around. We give kids little bikes with training wheels and pedals, and think the pedaling is the easy part. Whereas in fact, it's the balancing that's the easy part. And I always thought that was a compelling story in itself, and that kids learn to balance before they learn to pedal. So it could be as simple as that, as finding something that serves as a mission or purpose for the way you speak. If it's nutritional products, for example, what are the common issues that people have around their nutrition? Why do they fail? And out of that, potentially you can find some kind of mission or theme or vision that you can use and talk about repeatedly. And that becomes your story. That becomes what companies or clients and customers begin to associate with you and what you do, just in terms of, as they did with this bike company, and that, you know, kids learn to balance before they learn to pedal. And it was just a contrarian way of looking at the common wisdom that people applied. So I did say 6 tips. That was kind of number 7, but I think that's the one that brings it all together, because you might be having different conversations, you know, that are maybe informative, maybe educational, maybe entertaining, but again, underpinning your marketing should always be that short little story that resonates with your audience, basically something that they can associate with you, and that fixes your business. It's always the most difficult. So I think, you know, in terms of just bringing a summary, to me, I think marketing is, you know, a lot of marketing is broken in the way it structures itself, and that they charge too much money, and clients have high expectations and burn out too soon, instead of settling down for the long game. So get your foundations right, and then set a budget that will allow you to maintain visibility consistently and regularly for the next 10 months or 12 months. Test and measure what's working, what isn't. You know, there's a bit of time investment there. If you're using a marketing company to do it, again, you know, make sure that they can, you know, you can afford to pay whatever it is they're asking over 12 months, and that they are testing and measuring and coming back to you with the results. And that's something that I've been, I guess, since I've been back on deck in the marketing world, that's something I've actually been experimenting with. And I was saying to Mark, you know, clients say to me, oh, we need blogs, or we need a campaign, or whatever it is, and how much is that going to cost? And my approach now is, what do you think it's worth? What do you want to pay? What do you think is reasonable? And I've been quite pleasantly surprised. Some people are, you know, they're a bit suspicious of that. They're like, well, you know, am I going to tell you that, and then you're going to, you know, sort of somehow, you know, get more out of it than we originally planned. And I think, again, that's symptomatic of the whole marketing and sales culture, where you know, people expect the worst and rather than the best. And for the most part, what I've found is people are quite reasonable in setting budgets and saying, well, I think it's worth this, or, I can afford to do this for, at this fee for the next 12 months or whatever it is. And we're not talking lots and lots of money. We're talking $400 or $500 with some people. So it doesn't have to be a lot of money, but it does need to be consistent. It does need to be, compelling, have a story and get your foundational stuff correct, and that will underpin all of your marketing, and don't give up. Just keep going and keep going. And sort of finishing, when I sort of started out in business, in the marketing business, at least I left an agency in about 2004, and my whole idea was to do public relations consultancy. And what I found is that I didn't particularly enjoy pitching to journalists, because I'd come out of the newsroom myself, and it just dented my pride to call up a journalist and pitch a story to him. And that was just at that stage. So I sort of realized, well, there are stories here that, I create, I can write as good as any other media. And now there are channels where I can publish directly to the audience, where I can literally bypass the media. And I started doing that. And then I found out a couple of years later that it was called content marketing. So I started blogging and writing about content marketing. And it wasn't long before my website, and I spent no money on promotions and advertising. Obviously, I had my skills, but it wasn't long before I dominated Google searches on in every aspect, without spending a word on AdWords or on SEO. And that took a couple of years, 2 or 3 years to happen. And you'd have an agency come along and spend a whole lot of money on, so for example, the content marketing keyword, and they'd maybe knock me down 1 or 2 places, but in the end, I'd bob right back up, because I'd built that foundation. I'd been consistent, and I'd been doing it for years. And that's the reality. Your marketing is going to take a year or 2 to start yielding results. And that's me.
That's awesome, Colin. Thank you. Thanks heaps. We have recorded this session as well. So if you want to get in contact with Colin, you can. But who's got some questions? I think, Tim, you had your hand raised, and Kayleen, but if you unmute yourself, Tim.
I was applauding for the moment. I'll have a question in a minute. Could you just show the contact slide? Could you just show that contact slide again? It was a bit swift. The final contact slide of Colin.
So I'll just make a comment, if I can, Dan, while we're showing that slide. What I'd like to say about Iron Road, and there'll be some questions, is that if you want to write a compelling story or share a compelling story about your business or your customer's experience, then Colin's the sort of guy that can write and create that for you and point you in the right direction. So if you don't think that your business, your brand is coming across well, either your website or any articles and things like that, he's a really good man to talk to, and he's quite happy just to have a conversation, aren't you, Colin?
Yeah, I am. Thanks, Mark. Yeah.
Kayleen, you had a question?
Yeah, thank you, Colin. That was great. Colin, you talked about being consistent. So I am consistent with my vlogging and interviews. So I do 12 posts a month, but I'm in human resources, and through December, January, for the clients that I work with, it's not really a priority for them. So I was going to stop. I've been doing it for about 6 months. So I was going to stop December and January. Am I making a mistake by doing that? Yes,
you are. When people go on holiday, what do they have more time to do?
Right. Darn it.
If you notice that on the weekends, the LinkedIn engagement goes up, because people have more, they just have more time to engage with things like social media and LinkedIn. And what you have is a lot of business owners, a lot of leaders, they take January and February to think about their businesses, to explore new options, to listen to new ideas. And it's quite weird, because all of your competitors are going to go dead.
So can I just make a comment about Facebook and Instagram? If you post at 6:30, 7:30 at night, one post, people, our generation and all younger people are on their phones all day, but they're interactive at between 7 at night and 10 o'clock. Your likes, your views, whatever you put on will be exponential as to what you put on in the day when they're just scrolling through, because it's brand new to them and it's right on their feed. And you'll see your results go up just by doing that one little thing.
Thank you.
It might be an idea as well during December and January to think about the season that you're in, and the season may be that people are thinking about their businesses, looking to make, business plans for the coming year, to set goals and all of that sort of thing. So adjust your messaging around that in the ways that's relevant to your brand.
Thank you, Colin.
Thanks.
Perfect. Does anyone else have any questions? Cool. So yeah, definitely around that storytelling, it's so important around that marketing. So there's always learning to be had. So as I mentioned before, we are going to have a recording of the session. So if you want to get hold of that, then you can. Thank you very much, Colin. And we'll share that your contact details, that sort of thing, if people want to get in touch. Otherwise, you can obviously contact Melanie as well. Tim, did you have that question?
Yes, it came back. Sorry, Colin. The compelling story. Can you just sort of list the characteristics what makes a story compelling?
There would be sort of multiple things that you can do. One of the techniques, I guess, is, for example, is contrast. So where you can contrast two stories and sort of really, kind of refine it to a point where people get it. So for example, with Gecko bikes, where we said, kids learn to balance before they learn to pedal, that's contrarian. That's against the expected wisdom of the day, so that might be a technique that you do. But a really good story, or sort of kind of formatting your story, understanding it is, and I kind of touched on it maybe with stuff around nutritional products, is and in some ways we're doing it with marketing, is that there is something that people do all the time that causes failure, and so that first line might be, what is the problem? And this is a formula you could apply. What is the problem? And you address whatever the problem is. And then you sort of say, why does that problem exist? And this is about, another thing I go on quite a lot about is hearts and minds. You need to engage your audience at the heart, emotional level, because that's what motivates buying decisions. And then you need to follow up with the mind, the rational part, because that's what convinces it. So what's the problem? Why do they have that problem? What's the solution? And you could go on to say why you offer the best solution, all that, but what's the problem? Why do they have that problem? And what is the solution? And offer some education. This is how you fix it. So if you're adding value, you're not sort of saying buy from me. What you're saying is, here's two or three things you can do yourself, so that you're adding value, they're taking something away, because people are investing. When they engage with your marketing, when they engage with your blogs and your vlogs and your Instagram and all of that, they're investing their time in you, and you need to give them a return on that time straight away. So what's the problem? Why do they have that problem? What's the solution? And here's some tips or education. And that always is a pretty good default story structure.
Fantastic. All right. Thank you very much, Colin.